You know, in the history of faith, there are these stories that they defy all explanation. We're going to dive into one of those today. It's an incredible, miraculous journey that happened in just one night, and it came right out of a moment of profound crisis, stretching all the way from earth to the highest heavens. So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the deep sorrow that kind of set the stage for all this. Then we'll get into what makes a miracle in this tradition. After that, we'll follow the two parts of the journey, first to Jerusalem, then up through the heavens. We'll see the incredible gift that came out of it, and finally, we'll unpack the big lessons from this whole unbelievable story. All right, so let's jump right in. To really get why this journey is so significant, you have to understand the real earthly pain that came just before it. See, this wasn't just some random, out-of-the-blue event. It was a direct response to some truly immense suffering. This specific time in Prophet Muhammad's life is actually known as the Year of Sorrow. And yeah, it was exactly what it sounds like. I mean, his mission, his personal life, everything was under this crushing pressure. So this divine intervention that happens next, it's seen as a direct comfort from God. It's like a message saying, hey, even if the people on earth reject you, the heavens will welcome you with open arms. I mean, just try to imagine this pileup of loss. His uncle, Abu Talib, the guy who was his political shield, gone. His wife, Khadijah, his very first believer, his rock, his emotional anchor, she had passed away. And then, when he goes looking for support in the nearby city of Taif, what does he get? He's met with just violent rejection. So it's right here, at this absolute rock-bottom moment, that this miraculous journey is granted. Okay, so before we actually get to the journey itself, we've got to pause and understand a really key concept. The sources are super clear that this was a miracle. And in this tradition, that word, miracle, has a very, very specific meaning. So let's break that down for a second. So a mujiza, that's the term. It isn't just, something weird or unexplainable happening. No, it's a sign that has a purpose. It's an act that literally breaks the known laws of the universe. And it's performed by a prophet. Think of it like a divine signature. It's basically God's way of saying, yep, this person is speaking the truth on my behalf. And what's really fascinating is how the tradition draws these clear lines in the sand between a miracle and other extraordinary stuff. For example, you have magic, or sihr. That's seen as something that follows these hidden but learnable rules. Then there's grace, or karama. That can happen to a really pious person, but it's not tied to them claiming to be a prophet. A marjiza, though, that's in a whole different league. It's a direct, rule-breaking intervention, specifically to validate a prophet's message. See the difference? All right, so with that context locked in, let's get into the first part of the journey. It's known as Al-Isra, the night journey from Mecca all the way to Jerusalem. And as you can probably guess, the mode of transport was, well, it was anything but ordinary. The prophet was brought this celestial creature, and its name was Al-Buraq. Now try to picture this, a white steed, kind of between a mule and a donkey in size, but it moved with this incomprehensible speed. We're told that every single stride it took reached the farthest point its eyes could see. I mean, this is basically travel at the speed of light, maybe even the speed of thought. And this whole part of the journey was just packed with meaning. First off, in what felt like an instant, he travels from Mecca to Jerusalem. Then, at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, he leads all the previous prophets in prayer. Just think about that symbolism. It's all about the continuity of the divine message. And after that, he's offered two choices, milk or wine. He chooses the milk, and the angel Gabriel tells him he chose the fitra, the pure natural way that's in tune with God's design. But believe it or not, that was just the warm-up. From Jerusalem, the journey wasn't over, not by a long shot. It continued upwards. This next part is called the Miraj, the Ascension, a straight-up vertical journey through the seven heavens. So at each level of the heavens, he's greeted by a prophet. In the very first heaven, there's Adam, the father of humanity. Go up to the second, he meets Jesus and John. As he keeps ascending, he meets Joseph, then Aaron. In the sixth heaven, he meets Moses. And finally, in the seventh and highest heaven, he meets Abraham. Every single one of these encounters was like another link being forged in a chain, reinforcing his place in this long, unbroken line of prophecy. And there's this one moment in the sixth heaven that is just so human. As Muhammad passes by, the prophet Moses starts to weep. When he's asked why, he says it's because this young man, sent after him, will have more followers enter paradise than his own. And you have to understand, this wasn't jealousy. It was just this profound, raw emotion, a recognition of the incredible scale of the community that would follow this final prophet. Okay, so here we are. We've reached the absolute climax of the ascent. This wasn't just about meeting past prophets. The journey's peak was a direct audience with God, which led to a divine command and, get this, a fascinating negotiation that would literally shape the daily life of every single follower from that point on. So, at the peak of this whole thing, beyond the seventh heaven, Prophet Muhammad receives a divine command for his community, and it's a big one. They were to perform 50 prayers every single day. Now, on his way back down, he passes by Moses again. And Moses, with all his experience leading his own people, knows instantly that this command is going to be too difficult. He urges Muhammad to go back to God and ask for the burden to be lightened. So what happens next is this incredible series of trips, basically shuttling back and forth between Moses and God. Each time Muhammad goes back, he asks for a reduction, and the number gets lowered. This goes on and on until finally the command is settled. The final number? 5 daily prayers. And this right here is the heart of the divine gift. Moses actually tells him to go back and ask for another reduction, but Muhammad says he feels too shy to ask for any more, that he's content. And at that moment, a voice declares that the obligation is officially set at 5, but the spiritual reward would stay the same as the original 50. What an incredible act of divine mercy, right? 5 in practice, 50 in reward. So the celestial journey is over, but the earthly test? That was just beginning. Think about it. After witnessing the entire cosmos, meeting all the prophets, speaking directly with God, he's back in Mecca before the sun is even up. Now comes the really hard part. How in the world do you convince people that any of this actually happened? And just as you'd expect, most people in Mecca mocked him. They laughed. They said, "Are you kidding? It takes us a month just to get to Jerusalem and back." But when his closest friend, Abu Bakr, hears the story, his response is immediate. It's unconditional. He basically says, if he said it, it's true. I believe him about news from heaven, so why wouldn't I believe this? That absolute, unwavering belief, without a second of hesitation, became a defining moment for that entire early community. So, after all that, what are the big takeaways? What does this incredible night really mean when you boil it all down? Well, the sources really point to 4 crucial lessons. First, it's a huge message of hope, that divine relief can come right after the deepest, darkest hardship. Second, and this is important, the journey was physical, body and soul. See, if it were just a dream, it wouldn't have been a miracle, and it wouldn't have been such a test for people to believe. Third, it established the 5 daily prayers, which became a central pillar of the faith. And finally, it was the ultimate test of who truly had faith. So in the end, we're left with a story that's part mind-bendingly cosmic and part deeply, deeply human. It becomes a foundation for theology, for daily ritual, and for community's entire sense of identity. And it kind of leaves us all with a bigger question to chew on, doesn't it? How do stories of the miraculous, of things that break all the rules, shape a community's faith and its resilience? Especially when we all have to live in a world that follows very ordinary and sometimes very, very difficult rules.